Hello, I am so grateful to be here with you all today. As a pediatrician, I get the privilege of talking with children, teens, and their families every day about having healthy and safe relationships with their smart devices as part of their general medical care. As a parent of a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, I also have personal experience navigating screens as a family every day. Today, I am excited to join all of you as we discuss raising safe and healthy children in our digital age. Specifically, I would like to touch on how childhood health, behavior, and development can be adversely affected by our latest smart technologies, and share with you what a group in my hometown has been doing about it. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm advancing the wrong direction. Here we go. Oh. Are you able to IT unclick the pop-ups? I think the animation isn't working. Behind that slide is actually a slide that shows some very important statistics. Over the last 10 years of practice, I have seen a dramatic increase in the number of hours my patients are on screens. According to the Common Sense Media 2021 census, the average daily recreational media use alone is 5.5 hours a day for tweens, which is going to be 8 to 12-year-olds, and over 8.5 hours per day of recreational use for teens, 13 to 18 years old. And this is consistent with what I'm seeing in my practice. Ironically, I tried to find a screenshot because I check all of my patients' phones when they come in for their checkup. Their phone gets a checkup too. And a lot of them have iPhones, so it makes it pretty easy because in a few clicks, I get a lot of information. We go to settings, we go to screen time, and we go to see all activities. And I can tell you the statistics from the Common Sense Media census are very much consistent with what I'm seeing in my practice. And the top utilized apps are going to be some combination of YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and it's not up here, but Netflix is another big one for my population. The reason I talk with families about this issue is because there's compelling research that excessive screen use, and specifically social media use, is linked to a number of adverse mental and physical health effects. The National Youth Risk Behavioral Survey, which is a publicly available survey administered by the CDC, it's been since 1991, and has collected data from more than 5 million American high school students, published this 10-year trend among the students, showing a dramatic increase in persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. There have been many postulated reasons for this trend, but it is becoming increasingly clear that there is a parallel between youth anxiety, depression, and suicidality and our digital age. Many researchers use 2013 as a marker for when smart device and social media really started taking off within our youth. And this is why the Surgeon General issued an advisory about social media use last year. Other adverse health effects include insomnia, problems with attention, emotional dysregulation, disordered eating, and lack of physical activity, to name a few. All of the conditions listed here I have seen with links to screen overuse in my own practice. So why? Why is this happening, we might ask ourselves? That kids are spending so much of their day and their nights on screens. And how does it contribute to these adverse health effects? Well, there's a lot to this, but what I have personally, Our animation's not working, I apologize. But what I have personally observed, especially with smartphones, in part because of their pervasiveness in our culture, and in part because of their persuasive design, is that when a kid gets a smartphone, what starts out as relatively benign kind of form of entertainment, distraction, it quickly evolves into a maladaptive coping mechanism for life. Where they reflexively grab for their phones without thinking, as a distraction from being bored or uncomfortable. As this cycle becomes more and more a Pavlovian response to even the smallest moments of discomfort, we, as humans, start to lose our innate ability to handle stress or boredom, and lose out on valuable lessons in developing resiliency at a young age. This increasing reliance on screens to help us handle even the briefest of awkward moments, ultimately for many of my patients develops into a behavioral addiction. Through the persuasive design of smart devices, which includes well-engineered variable ratio rewards and algorithms, the device itself feeds the consumer a constant stimulus that releases dopamine in our brains and drives us toward further use. It hijacks an evolutionarily critical neurochemical and uses it to increase our engagement, as the industry likes to call it, with their product. Oh, bummer. Okay. Imagine these are popping up as we're going through them. Currently, there is no formal medical diagnosis of screen addiction. However, behavioral addictions are well known to psychiatrists. Dr. Anna Lemke, a child psychiatrist at Stanford and the author of Dopamine Nation, who diagnoses and treats children and teens with screen-based behavioral addictions, currently applies the DSM-5 criteria for substance addiction used in adults. If we do so here, we start to have a clearer picture of what is going on with kids and screens. All right, along this list, which I will read out to you since it's covered by that having 2 to 3 of the following would be considered a mild use disorder. 4 to 5 would be a moderate use disorder, and 6 or more would be a severe use disorder. 1, taking it in larger amounts and for longer than you meant to. Wanting to cut down or stop using but not managing to do so. Spending a lot of time getting, using, or recovering. Yes. Cravings and urges to use. Not managing to do what you should at home, work, or school because of it. Continuing to use when it causes problems in relationships. Right? Giving up important social, occupational, or recreational activities because of it. Using again and again, even when it puts you in danger. Continuing to use, even if you have a physical or psychological problem that could have been caused or made worse by use. And needing more of it to get the same effect you want, and developing withdrawal symptoms, which can only be relieved by more use. This behavioral addiction contributes to youth mental health, adverse youth mental health. You see, as our attention is increasingly locked on the screen, we start to miss out on being present, even in the good, meaningful, and enjoyable moments of real life. Smart technology, with its constant barrage of dings and vibrations, interrupts an important phenomenon psychologists call flow. Flow are those moments when you feel fully engaged in a moment. All your senses are involved, your full attention's present, and you're usually sharing it with a loved one. These times are locked in a special part of our memory and have a transcendent quality. Close your eyes for a second. We're going to do a little experiment. I want you to think back on your childhood. What good memories flash into your mind? Okay, by show of hands, for anyone out in the audience, did your moment involve a movie or a video game? Anyone? Okay. No. Flow moments make life feel rich and make us feel alive. For me, I experienced this, bummer. Imagine a beautiful waterfall. I feel this on an annual trip I take with my family to Yosemite. But kids who are online a lot today are experiencing less and less of these magical moments, as they and the adults around them are in constant state of divided attention. They're experiencing a childhood interrupted by technology, where the fear of missing out online impedes their full experience of joy of life offline. These boys, this was my hike up to Vernal Falls. These boys never made it to the waterfall right around the bend. Let's now talk about human attachment, arguably the greatest driver of human behavior and development. Attachment to a smart device also directly competes for a child's natural and critically important attachment to their caregiver. I have even seen a 3-year-old smack their parent in the face when their mom tried to take away their phone. And caregiver distraction and incongruent communication while on their phone interferes with child bonding. We call this phenomenon, in my family, phubbing, phone snubbing. And since I talked to my daughter about it, she loves to call me out on that one. And have you ever listened to a parent who's trying to talk to their child while texting on their phone and what they're saying, and it doesn't even make any sense? And I know my kids, they love to ask me those, hey, can I have another cookie while I'm on my phone, right? Because, sure, okay, we're distracted. So how does interrupted child and caregiver attachment affect youth mental health? When more and more people's time and attention is put onto online activities, then less is put into the quality of their relationships in person. At a conference I attended recently, it was reported that the average teen now spends less than 1 hour a day talking with their father, in comparison to the 8 hours a day or more on their phone. Unfortunately, then, when a significant life challenge occurs, they have less of the deep relational support to sustain them through those challenges. In other words, what is needed most in the darkest times cannot be found among the hundreds of likes and chats. In contrast to dopamine released by smartphones, oxytocin, a pro-social hormone, is released through a hug, other physical intimacy, a caressing voice, certain foods and physical activities. And according to the world's longest scientific study on human happiness, conducted by the Harvard Study of Adult Development, it is good, solid relationships that keep us healthier and happier and more resilient. Let's talk briefly about human brain development. Screen time reduces interaction with the natural environment and also talk time between parent and child up to 85% when the screen is on, and has now been linked to language, literacy, and problem-solving delays. Younger humans are particularly susceptible to behavioral addiction to screens because, like we've been talking about so many of our speakers, the important area of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that is responsible for the reasoning and judgment required to break out of the cycle of habitual use takes time to mature. And it's not fully operational until at least, any guesses? 25 years old, 25 years old. This is that area of the brain responsible for that higher level thinking, that thought, I better get up because I have X, Y, and Z still to do today. Younger kids don't have that. Younger brains are also particularly vulnerable to the brain-altering effects of excessive use. Functional brain MRIs are being used to study this phenomenon now, and I'm not a neuroscientist, but the basic adage here is neurons that fire together, wire together. In other words, there is a neuron and a neuron-synaptic pruning process that takes place throughout childhood. And our habitual experiences and actions reinforce, strengthen, and solidify the neurons that support them. The neurons that are not used are pruned away. This is becoming more and more concerning as screens are becoming a larger part of childhood. Let's take attention as an example here. When children are habituated to receiving information in short, entertaining online video clips or constant task switching, then tasks that require sustained attention, like reading, become more difficult because the neurons required for these tasks have not been fortified. In a real sense, we lose the ability to sustain the mundane. At the dawn of the digital age, we used to think humans will just adapt to be better online multitaskers. However, what research is confirming now is that the human brain can only truly focus on one cognitive task at a time. There are no true multitaskers when it comes to our conscious thought. All right, let's try a little brain experiment. Right now, I want you to try to think of the last text you received while simultaneously reading the title of this slide. Now get out your phone and start texting and tell me what my last slide said. It's impossible. Very good. So what researchers found is that you're not actually multitasking, but task switching. And task switching has been shown to be a very inefficient way to learn or function. It diminishes retention of what we learn and remember, and it also adds to psychological and physical stress. Researchers have found that it can take up to 23 minutes to regain one's focus after a single interruption. Considering the average teen now receives 237 electronic notifications a day, it's safe to say that they are rarely allowed the luxury of an uninterrupted thought. So what does all of this have to do with our topic today of online safety? Well, not only for us to understand the importance of protecting children and teens' mental health from the adverse effects of excessive screen use, but, and this is critical, we also need to understand that lonely, sad, anxious, tired, addicted, and unattached children and teens are vulnerable children and teens. And when they're online alone, in these mental states, and the World Wide Web of predators has access to them, they are at high risk. Predators frequent the apps, as we've seen, that unsupervised youth are on, and they catfish for vulnerable youth in order to exploit them. During the pandemic, try and make this last part quicker. During the pandemic, a small group of medical and mental health specialists in my hometown became increasingly concerned about the adverse mental and physical health effects we were seeing in our pediatric practices, and we decided to do something about it. We stepped outside our clinic walls and formed a grassroots coalition, and we started reading and researching and hosting book clubs and community events. We named ourselves TechWise SB and created a website, a social media page, and produced monthly newsletters to help raise community awareness. Ultimately, we produced a letter to our local school board signed by over 200 medical and mental health professionals that was endorsed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, Chapter 2, where we requested the issue of smart device use be addressed in our schools. This was followed up by with many presentations to the board, various email correspondence, and several interviews with our local news outlets. And ultimately, resulted in changed policy and the development of a district-wide tech use committee where ongoing issues surrounding smart devices in schools can be discussed. Our community outreach out of our community outreach, a new and innovative project is being born. Currently, a group of pediatric residents are developing a school-based series of interactive educational presentations on safe and healthy use of smart device technology to roll out to the schools next year. I want to encourage everyone in this room today that you too can play an important role in shifting policy, system, and cultural change around this topic. I have seen firsthand how in my community, the ripple effect from one individual is so impactful. Thank you.